One of the most important things when selecting a chair is to go through somebody who is certified. Let's say they have their ATP, Assistive Technology Provider, Assistive Technology Practitioner. We sell through a limited number of dealers. We don't sell to just any dealer. Our goal is to try to sell to the most qualified dealers in a given area. And when you get your chair, however you want to operate the chair, the electronics on all the chairs today are all pretty similar and very adaptable. So if you have a tendency, let's say you have like a T-handle, and your hand's on it all the time, you want that joystick to be able to go to neutral. In the old days, you almost had to take your hand off to make sure it was in neutral, or you had to have good motor control. Today we can take that neutral point and expand it out. We call it a dead band. Or we can open that up so somebody can have the joystick in place and still be, say, 1/4 of an inch off center, but it'll still be in neutral. So there's a lot of programmability available in all the chairs today. When somebody gets a chair, if it's not performing the way they want it to perform, it's important that they go back to the dealer they purchased it from. And if they're not getting support from that dealer, they should be able to contact the manufacturer's rep in that area that's willing to come out, sit down, spend some time with them. Not all manufacturers are willing to do that. Not all manufacturers have the capability to do that in their sales force. But that's one of the things that Permobil strives to perfect, is having the most educated sales force out there. And oftentimes we will be the ones that go out and help somebody fine-tune a chair. On the C350, we have independent suspension on all 4 wheels. On the C300, our front-wheel drive, that one doesn't have suspension on the front, but we have a very unique airless insert. If you look at the airless inserts from all the manufacturers, they're about as hard as a rock, and the chair has a tendency to just take all the jolts. Or we use a special insert that we developed that has a gel overlay on the top, so it feels more like a pneumatic tire. Everybody seems to think it has suspension, but it's more the drive tire. You're watching the suspension on the chair work, so as you're going over obstacles, the frame of the chair is taking the impact versus the user. This is great when driving over rough terrain, but in a vehicle using the Permalock is designed to lock that system out so we can maintain as stable a base as possible. Shock mechanism here, adjustable, and then you also have a tension spring on your anti-tips. We have a pivot point here on this rocker arm, and then we have suspension here that's also adjustable. And then you can see how it's independent suspension on the drive wheel itself. One of the key things on all Permobil products is the airless insert that we make. A lot of times you're going to have a hard airless insert and you're going to wear your tire right down through the center. What Permobil does is it has a gel overlay on the insert, so this looks and feels like a pneumatic tire. So we get to use the full tread for biting and climbing over obstacles and even wear and tear on your tire, rather than just right down the center. Front-wheel drive will be much more maneuverable indoors, getting around corners, getting closer to obstacles and so on. Outdoors, that larger drive wheel actually makes the bumps feel smaller because you're hitting it with a larger surface, more like, say, a monster truck going over a car. That larger the wheel, the smaller the obstacle feels. On our rear-wheel drive chairs, we use a 9-inch front caster instead of a 6 or an 8-inch. So that we still kind of have that same effect. It's a larger tire rolling over an obstacle, makes it feel smaller, plus the suspension on the front of the C350 as well. What we do is we throw a shroud over the motors, try to quiet down, have less, a little bit dampening of the noise coming up. But we also provide the suspension and that airless insert that helps quiet down the drive as well. We know that when going over obstacles just down a sidewalk, you have expansion joints about every 3 feet. We try to make it as smooth as possible going over those. So our rear-wheel drive and our front-wheel drive versus what's most common on the market today is mid-wheel drive. We have less wheels on the ground, larger tires on the ground, so a lot less noise coming from the chair itself. Technology out there for gearless, brushless hasn't been perfected well. Initially when they were coming out, they talked about those being maintenance-free, and they're anything but maintenance-free. We use a sealed motor so that you don't have access to the brushes, but we use a much larger brush, so it gives you a much smoother ride, and you don't have to replace the brushes on the motors as often as you do everybody else's. Now these are direct drive motors, and they are steel gears inside. We use galvanized steel and rivets, so it acts more like aircraft technology, where it has some flexibility in the frame versus a solid structure with welds. It holds up much better under testing, and I've never seen us have an issue with a frame on a c300 or a c350 because of this more aircraft design. We have an enhanced steering package. It's an option on the c300. We use that when somebody has a vent tray where there's additional weight and an extra battery way on the back of the chair. Helps tracking, and we also use that on our high speeds. If somebody is driving with specialty electronics, say a sip and puff or a head array, it allows the chair to track straight, less corrections needed. Certain countries like Germany, you have to have turn signals, headlights, and taillights on your power chairs. So we make it available as a standard feature in some countries, but don't want to just hold out and not make them available to others. So we make them available in the U.S. market, which is kind of a rarity. Not a lot of manufacturers do that. One of the unique features about the 350 and the 300 is that we use a Group 34 battery, which is a 60 amp hour battery. Most of the chairs in this category are going to use a 22 or even a U1 battery. So we're looking at a 30 amp hour. Some are using a 40 amp hour. The Group 22 is a 50 amp hour battery. But what we use here is a 60 amp hour battery. So we've got essentially a bigger gas tank. And it's a larger battery, but it's shorter, allows us to get lower seat heights and have a better range. I think what makes Permobil unique is that we manufacture a chair more focused on the human body and the maneuverability both indoors and outdoors.
Permobil C300 and C350. Transportation provided by the Braun Intervan. www.braunability.com. Brought to you by the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation and Gold Pictures. Filmed on location at Universal Studios, California.